Yo, this your boy Sam, joined by my guy Matthew. We on Twitter. I'm at More Life One. He's at Star Conscience. This is the voice of Florida State football, man. How you doing, Matthew? Sorry about that.
Doing good, man. Doing good. A little different. Shooting early in the AM, but we gotta do what we gotta do.
Yeah, I see you got your lighting right back there. That must be the sun coming through.
Oh well, no, actually, I just kind of moved to another part of my apartment that got some better lighting, so this look
Okay,
way
okay,
better.
okay.
Yeah, this is actually where I was for the first show we did.
Oh yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, so I think I'm just keep this spot. This look a lot better.
How your Memorial Day weekend going?
Actually, I haven't really been doing nothing, man. No, I just been enjoying
That make it
being
sound
off
like
from
it's
work.
going good then.
Yeah. It's just relaxing, and it's like real overcast, and look, it's probably gonna rain in this couple of days, so it's probably not gonna be much to do anyway. Haven't heard about nobody cooking out or hanging out doing nothing, so it's just enjoying free time, man. That's all I've been doing.
No, let me ask you this question. This got to be like the best NBA playoffs we've ever had, bro.
It's definitely been exciting, man. That Knicks Pacers series. I mean, it looked like it was gonna be a wipeout, but I kind of hope it goes seven now.
Bro, I'm expecting somebody to actually die on the court, bro. That game, that series is a bloodbath, bro. That's old school basketball. It ain't like
Yeah,
old school basketball, but it's really close to like old
yeah.
school basketball because them teams are so even. Like even though the Knicks blew game one and game two, they kind of blew the games at the end. It's crazy to me that you could be up 10, 14 points with 3 minutes and 5 minutes to go, and it's still real game pressure.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That's like kind of abnormal when you talk about basketball, and especially with two teams that got two guys that are like really good closers. Like Brunson's a great
Yeah,
closer,
Brunson's probably the
Halliburton's
best
a
right
great closer. And it's like you putting these two guys that's like fearless on the same court. It's hard for the game to end because they don't ever give up.
now. Right.
So it's been some of
Yeah.
the best NBA playoffs, man.
It's
And
definitely top.
WNBA is back. I actually had a great,
So
great,
yeah,
great sports weekend, bro. Sports weekend
yeah.
it's
Yeah,
been
and
pretty good though.
see me, I'm a hockey fan too, so I be watching hockey and stuff. So
Oh,
it
for
was a
real?
great, yeah. I mean, unfortunately, Stars got blowed out yesterday, but yeah, man, it's definitely a fun time right now. A
Yeah,
lot of
yeah.
sports going on.
I see people talking about it's so he said, hold up, it's no Pistons Celtics versus nine. Yeah, I mean, it's
Oh
not, but
yeah,
it
I
is.
mean, definitely
It's
not
not,
that,
but it
but
is. It's not, but it is
yeah,
though. I mean, like, it would take for one of these teams to win a championship for you to feel like,
yeah,
you know what I'm saying? It would take a team to win the championship. Because usually when you talk about a great series, you need somebody have to be rewarded for the series. Like it can't just
hmm
be a great series and the guys don't win the championship. You know what I'm saying?
right,
So
right, yeah,
we don't know if that's gonna happen, but nah, man. And you got WNBA and all this drama. It's back. I love it. I'm all in on the WNBA. I love all of it. And girls hate each other. Everybody. It ain't just the Anisha
right,
Clark thing. Everybody. All these girls
yeah,
hate each other. They
everybody.
be throwing each other down on the ground, bro. They be body slamming
Yeah,
each other.
seeing a lot more attitudes, a lot more hard fouls. Seem like,
It's insane out there, bro.
yeah, yeah,
It's like if you gave basketball wives an actual basketball to put them on a court.
uh-huh.
But
Yes, sir.
no, man. Let me get off the sports weekend though. We came in today. We want to talk more about the defensive staff in general. I mean, I think a lot of people's, you can only talk about Mike Norvell's job security so much. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Which I'm gonna keep beating this horse until it's dead, but I just don't think he's in no trouble to get fired this year. I really don't. And I think some of the things he did from a coaching standpoint, the guys he added on the staff and the guys that he didn't fire on the staff, pretty much tells me that he's in no real trouble to be fired. I just don't because I told somebody if you felt like the reason why you lost a lot of games last year was because you didn't recruit well in high school and you didn't develop well, right? If that's the reason why you felt like you had such a bad year, if you felt that way, I would think that you would have fired the football GM You'd have fired some of the recruiting coordinator people in the back rooms. You would have
Mhm.
fired some of the coaches, more coaches on the staff that signed off on these guys and guys that missed in recruiting, but they really didn't do that. I mean, Papuch
Right.
is still there. Um, Mike Norvell's still there. I mean,
Mhm.
David Johnson, he's a running back coach. He's still there. You
Yep.
know, and a running backs
Yep.
coach,
Yak. Hmm.
your running back coach should be like your best recruiter on the staff. So,
Right.
um, they didn't really the total makeover of you saying, man, I want to rebuild this staff in a way that we're going to recruit at a higher level, we're going to develop at a higher level. I think they actually should have fired more people and brought in more people.
Hmm.
You didn't bring in guys with, and I thought bringing in guys with like a lot of NFL experience would have been more prudent. Like, you brought in Patrick Surtain Senior the year before, which you was kind of forced into that hire because I heard they wanted to make another hire, but somebody was like really dead set on them hiring Patrick Surtain and really talked Mike into doing it. And I thought, because of the benefits when you hired Surtain that you would have went that route, hired more guys like that. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
But they didn't. So I keep saying this. They haven't moved like a staff. Well, Mike hasn't moved like a guy that feels like his job is in jeopardy. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
He hasn't moved like that, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Um, you can go from there. I'm sorry. I didn't want
Oh
to.
no, you good. No, it's
Okay.
just. I mean, I think that you definitely hit a good point. I mean, if you were gonna blow this thing up, there would have been a lot more people from the old regime that have been gone. But Mike. I mean, I'll say this again. I think people still living in that shock of the 2-10 season. And
Right.
it's it's so easy to go to the top and say, hey man, you're 2-10, you look real uncompetitive. There's some games that were over seemingly before even halftime was over. You kind of knew what the outcome
Right.
outcome was going to be. You're just getting out coached and stuff like that. But I just don't see how you win 23 games in 2 years and have one little. I mean, it was a big hiccup, but have a hiccup and think that now a guy's going to be out of a job. So I'm definitely not on that train. So I definitely agree with you there. But I just think that people are going to have to be a little more patient. Well, as far as the ones that won't want him gone, that really want his head on the stick, like that's not going to happen after this year.
Yeah. I mean, they
Um,
they just haven't. He just haven't. It's like it's hard to explain. It's like I feel like he didn't take the appropriate step back and actually look at the program and see what's actually wrong with the program, and or take a step back and look at it and see what's actually right with the program. I think that the way they moved seems like they believe if they just spend more time with the players and be uh, more adept with the players and be more hands-on with the players, that the players will actually play better and that'll be the turnaround they want. I don't think I don't think they see it as we're not actually bringing in pro-ready NFL type guys that can compete in a real back and forth with other teams that have NFL talent. They believe they have a effort problem. You know what I'm saying? But I guess that's where for people that do want Mike gone or the people that do want to believe in Mike, I think that's the problem a lot of people see. Like where's the like I think with Saban it's always like he always had an edge. And most of the great coaches have an edge. There is a competitive fire. There is a it's never good enough until you win everything. You know what I'm
mhm.
saying? So they haven't really brought in guys that's going to do that type of stuff. So I think that's probably your biggest problem. You know, I think that's your biggest problem. And we're gonna start with the defensive staff because I thought with the defensive staff he had a real chance to really bring in guys that you probably could have got more dogs far as your defensive staff, right? Uh, and really attack your problem on defense. So we'll start with the coach I think that's the most maligned, which I don't think he's. I think the only reason he's maligned is because he's on Twitter more. But I didn't actually expect anything great out of this coach. But it's Terrence Knighton.
As soon as you said on Twitter, I already knew you were talking
Yeah, I
about.
think.
I already knew you were talking about.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
we can start with Terrence Knighton, man.
Yeah, I mean, I he's definitely on the top of my list because I know we touched on this before, but this 3-3-5, I being new, I think, and you and I both agreed that the offense is probably going to be ahead of defense to start the year,
Yeah,
and I think it's going to take a while for this new system to gel. You got an opponent like Alabama in the first week. I think that's going to really uh, show you, the stuff that you need to work on because they're normally really good on the offensive line.
right,
And I don't. They have pro guys on the offensive line regularly. I mean,
right,
um, that's why I had Daryl Jackson as one of my key people because he's going to have to be big in that middle and also James Williams off the edge. But I think that's going to take a while. I think he's going to really have to. I don't think it's a lack of talent thing with them, but I think he's going to really have to coach them up, and he's going to really have to get them through some growing pains. There's going to be some time when they're going to probably get whipped against Bama, and they're going to need to have some confidence because you have a window before you meet Miami where you can really start getting some things together because you're playing lesser opponents. You can start figuring some things out more so that way and take some of the negatives from Alabama. And I mean, whether you win or lose against Alabama ain't really a thing. We just want them to at least be competitive against Bama. Like, show me that you got a team that can compete and stuff like that. I mean, I want the win, but because that's just how I am. But I mean, just show me that you can play with Bama. That's the main thing. But I think once they get out of that game, they have a chance to really build the momentum as far as the defense goes and what they're trying to execute before they play Miami, which is going to be your next real test
right.
about a month later. But yeah, he's gonna have to. I mean, people love the theatrics on Twitter and all that, but he's gonna have to really, really coach these guys up because you have some turnover there. James is new, even though he's been in the system. You got this. The Deontay McCray kid who's probably going to start. He's probably going to be one of the three down linemen to start, and I think Diggs is probably going to back up Jackson in
Right.
the middle. So I think all those guys are going to play a lot this year coming up.
Mhm.
So yeah, he's definitely the number one because I mean, if we don't get the trenches right, then the defense is not going to work anyway. It's just with me. I think you agree too. I'm not the biggest fan of three down lineman defenses. I don't like 3-man fronts.
Right.
So we'll just have to see what they come up with.
Yeah, I think the Terrence Knighton piece is. Uh, I think that is a part of. I don't want to say the fans was lied to, but I'd say that's more like people online and their propaganda with stuff.
Mhm.
Like people just, I guess you just assuming somebody's on Twitter posted a bunch of gifs that they're good recruiters. I don't know why people assume that.
Mhm.
People put a bunch of memes on the internet. And people be like, "Oh, that's a great recruiter right there." It's like
Yeah.
it really got nothing to do with recruiting.
No.
But
I mean, yeah, love the enthusiasm, but
yeah. But I think with him, I actually do think he's going to be a good coach. I think he's a good coach, maybe a good coach, maybe. Um, recruiting wise, I keep saying this. I think recruiting starts at the top. I really do. I don't think. I think if your head coach is a great recruiter, for the most part, your staff is going to be great recruiting staff. That's the coach. The head coach has to care about that type of stuff.
yeah,
And Mike to me is a lazy recruiter. I keep saying this, and it's not that he's a lazy recruiter when it comes to guys that are like top 100 players. Like
mhm.
like once them guys get identified, they'll recruit them guys. You know what I'm saying? But their problem is they don't find guys early enough. They don't find them at 8th grade
That's
and
it.
ninth grade. That's their problem. Like
Yes.
they wait too late to
Yes.
identify these guys, and then once they identify 'em, they start trying to talk to them. And it's like they haven't done no background research on these guys, and they fail at recruiting because of that reason. And Terrence Knight, and because he's an NFL guy, it's always different with NFL people that come from the NFL, especially when they was players. Like some of them might care about recruiting, some of them might not give a damn about it. You know what I'm saying? Patrick Surtain Sr. cares about recruiting. He cares about getting the best player, developing the best player. You know, he cares about relationships. Like he talks to high school coaches. He goes to high school games. He goes to high school practices when there
Yeah.
is no game that week. Like
All the time,
he
all
spends
during the week.
time
Yeah.
at high
Hmm.
schools in communities. Like
Yes.
he's a good.
Yes.
That's a sign of a really good recruiter. You
Hmm.
know, Terrence Knight don't want to drive 15 minutes up the road to talk to a defensive lineman. You know what I'm saying? So,
Yeah.
but
That's
the head coach
that's
should
wild.
make that happen though. You know, the head coach
Hmm.
should make, like, if you see one guy put that type of work in, the head coach should be making all his assistants and grad assistants put the same amount of work in, and recruiting staff put the same amount of work in, collect the data on these players. You know what I'm saying? They're not doing that. Uh,
Yeah.
and Knighton is a victim of that because he hasn't been in college football long, and Nebraska is not in an area where it's recruiting rich. So I think that was his first job was Nebraska. It's not a recruiting rich area. You know, I think with Surtain, because he was a high school coach down south,
Hmm.
you spend time, and his kid was recruited, so he saw the amount of effort that it took
Yep.
that a high, college coach supposed to take when it comes to recruiting a player, what type of development plan a player should be on, and how to
Hmm.
get those players to realize their dreams. So that's a that's a that's a big deal. So I think with Knight, I think it's a fail as recruiting, but I think on the field, I think he could probably still be a good coach on the field. And I think when I say he'd be a good coach, I think he'd give you a lot more than what Odell Hagens gave you on the field.
Yeah.
Personally.
I mean, because when you look at, it to me. I mean, I don't know if you feel this way, but last year defensively, it didn't just seem like they were getting beat
No,
scheme wise. I also think that it looked like a lot of effort too. And going back to your point you were saying earlier about how you think they have an effort issue. And I think Knighton, with his energy and all that,
right,
he just gives off a vibe to me that he's somebody that's gonna probably be real detail oriented and try to get these guys coached up. But like I said, I just think it's gonna take some time because the defense is new,
right,
and with Jackson having to be key and Williams for me. I just think that I'm not saying he can't. I'm just saying that Knighton he's going to have to really coach these guys up quick because once you get past Bama, you'll have the opportunity to really get into the nuts and bolts of the defense, see what works, see what doesn't, and you start playing this better competition. But Bama's going to be a good test. That's going to be interesting to me too. Like how have you coached these guys up to play an opponent like Bama?
right.
Um, so that's to me, he might be. I got Herb Hand is my most important coach, but I think Knighton is right there behind him because I'm
Right.
big on trench. I'm
You
really
know,
big on controlling the line of scrimmage. So
I think they're gonna play good in the Bama game. I think they're gonna play
me
good in the
too.
Bama game. I don't think the Bama game is gonna be their problem. I think they're gonna play good. I think they're gonna be proud of the effort they put forth in the Bama game. Um, their problem is gonna be the Virginias and the Virginia Techs of the world. Like, can you get your guys to come bring a lunchbox and go to work every play? You know, when you start getting to the meat of the ACC schedule. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
And so that's going to be the biggest issue with that. Can you get your guys to come play every, what I'm saying, every play in these games where people don't really care about? You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
And can he get the younger guys to take steps forward as the season go on? I mean, they brought in a pretty good true freshman that I think is gonna be pretty good. Can he be in the rotation, but not just in the rotation? Can he be making plays by game 4, game 5? you know,
Mhm.
and
Okay,
look like the
so
heir apparent to Derrick Jackson.
oh,
So
you
that's
talking about Kevin Wynn? Yeah,
yeah, Kevin Williams. Yeah, I
Kevin.
think he can be a pretty good player. You know, so can you get
Right.
these guys to? Can you get him to take a huge step by game 5 games? Well, you know, wait, by the time you get in October, you need your true freshman, in my opinion.
Hmm.
If you recruit a guy and he's supposed to be of that ilk by October, he should be playing in
Yeah.
the rotation, pushing. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah.
So
Yeah, because I mean, Kevin Wynn is one of the recruits they did get in 2025. You looked at, okay, like he's probably gonna play a lot early.
right,
Just with his, I mean, with that speed and explosiveness, but at that size, being 300 pounds, he definitely has a lot of potential. So you definitely, by the time you play Miami, when October hits, you want to see him take some strides. So because
yeah,
he's going to be in the mix. He's going to be in the rotation. So yeah, Kevin Wynn, although he's a true freshman, he's definitely one of the kind of spotlight players for me because they're going to need him early.
okay. And my next coach I want to talk about is Evan Cooper, the safeties coach. So let me go look up a little bit of his bio. So he's somebody that's actually been around for a little while, actually.
Hmm.
And our safeties are supposed to be pretty good this year. So I'm actually expecting some big things from the safeties this year, to be honest with you.
Hmm.
So he did coach with the Carolina Panthers. So he was actually on the staff with what's my boy name? Matt Rule. So he was with Matt Rule
Matt
for a
Rule.
while, actually. He was with Matt Rule since 2013. Right. Yeah, he was with Rule from Temple to Baylor to the Carolina Panthers to Nebraska to Florida State. Uh he started coaching actually at Fort Lauderdale, Westminster Academy. So
Hmm. Yeah,
oh,
he's
he's a
a
player person from Miami. Okay,
he's
so he's a
he's
player
actually
person
had
at
quite
Miami.
a few jobs in the last decade.
Yeah.
Different
So
titles, especially when he was at Baylor and Temple, and he kept switching roles and stuff.
so that's somebody I think should be a good recruiter. You know, and something else about the Matt Rule, the guy that they got from Nebraska under Matt Rule. Matt Rule is a grinder. I don't know if people know this, but this dude is like Matt Rule, somebody that like will spend 14 hours at the facility. And he asked his coaches to do crazy things. I know last year he had the coaches working out. Like he was like, we got to be in shape because we asked the players to be in shape. So he had the coaches
Mm,
get there at like 4 o'clock in the morning to work out, did do film,
that's a
did
dog.
organize.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, dog. So I understand why coaches don't want to be on his staff.
uh,
And I did hear that he's a grinder like that. And I heard your boys like that too. What's the guy for Syracuse? Fran Brown.
Brown. Okay.
Yeah, I heard Fran's like an insane person like that too. Like he demands a shit ton out of his coaches. I mean, well, Fran comes so Matt Rule's like that, and the Matt Rule came from Fran Brown before he went to Georgia.
In Georgia.
Yeah, so I kind of that's another thing that bothered me too, because when you gotta go from a coach that's like really, really demanding, and you got another coach that's not as demanding, like what does that do to that coach psyche? Because now the coach is like, well, I ain't got to do much over here. He ain't even asking us to be here until 7 o'clock. You know what I'm
Right.
saying?
Yeah. The dynamic definitely changes. So.
So that dynamic does change. So I hope Evan is like a self-motivated person, you know what I'm saying? And he becomes a pretty good recruiter. But I did think the safety play at FSU was bad the last couple of years, actually.
Mhm.
I actually thought it was bad every year. I know it's gonna be some years people gonna feel like that 23 team was
Yeah.
22 team had good safety play, but I actually always thought the
Yeah.
safety play bad. I just thought they never went against quarterbacks that could do anything about it. But I always thought the safety
Hmm.
play was bad. And Adam Fuller was a safeties coach. I never understood that. But
Yeah.
with Evan Cooper, though, I do hope, especially with him and Surtain marrying this stuff together, the safeties and the cornerbacks together,
Hmm.
hopefully they get better defensive back play altogether. So I think
Yeah.
Evan Cooper can be a good on-field coach. I expect more out of him recruiting wise, to be honest with you, though.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the thing because I mean, if you look at the talent at safety, they actually are pretty talented.
Yeah, they actually are pretty talented at safety.
Yeah, same thing. I mean, you got Kirkland and Brown. Then, you got Conrad. You still got Earl Little. So
Yeah,
you got the freshman they brought in. What's his name? Shamar Knox, whatever his name is.
yeah, or not. But I think he's
Yeah,
not
yeah.
playing. He's playing quarterback, right?
He's a corner though. But I'm just
Okay.
saying, 'cause we were talking about like Marion.
Yeah, yeah,
The
yeah.
the players from the positions, but yeah, the talent's there at safety. But I mean, we've been beating this horse again. We need to get these coaches better at the recruiting aspect, and not. I just get tired of when I finally hear them, in on the guy that these schools like Bama and the Georgias and the Michigans and all that have been talking to him since like 2022, and then you just made them off in February. You know what I'm saying?
Right,
So they've been recruiting these guys. He was a freshman, eighth grade. You come at the tail end of his junior year, like that's a lot to overcome. So I think that speaks more back to your lazy recruiting comment with Mike Norvell.
right.
Because I mean, you look at a guy like Nick Saban, when he was at Alabama. Not only could he recruit, but he had guys out there going out there getting dogs. He
I mean,
he he.
you couldn't get staff unless you could recruit high school. I mean,
Yeah.
bro, I told somebody this. Nick Saban, when he was at Michigan State, it's a different level of recruiting at Michigan State. You can just kind of get guys, pluck guys, and develop guys or whatnot. Um, but on his staff, he had Matt Patricia, and he had
Hmm.
Josh McDaniels on his Michigan State staff. They was like some young up and coming guys. So he get ready to
Hmm.
take the LSU job, and they was like, "Oh, Nick, we gonna go with you to LSU." And he was like, "Oh, nah, we finna go into the beast now. Like, let me see y'all to Bill Belichick." You know
Hmm.
what I'm saying? Like,
Yep.
I gotta go get like the Jimbo Fishers of the world. You know what I'm saying? I gotta get people that's like been bred in I-10 recruiting. Jimbo was at quarterback coach at Auburn.
Hmm.
So he had kind of been bred in that system of how you recruit in the South. So it's not always about getting the best football coach, because I'm pretty sure Josh McDaniels and Matt Patricia was pretty good football coach, X and O wise. You know what I'm saying? But Jimbo was a more dynamic recruiter. You know,
Yes, he was.
you
Yeah.
know what I'm saying? So he grabbed
Yeah.
Jimbo and grabbed Will Muschamp. These guys that was young, still young guys. But he grabbed guys that could recruit those areas. Yeah, that knew those
Yes.
areas. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm. Yeah.
So,
Exactly.
because everybody know X's and O's. I mean, when you get down to the bottom, everybody can teach it. Everybody can get on the
Everybody can
whiteboard
teach
and
it.
start
Yeah.
teaching
Exactly.
shit on the whiteboard,
Right.
but
Right. Right. Right.
you got to get guys that's going to transcend the X's and the O's. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
So,
the way you do that is getting in on these high 4-star 5 guys when they're young.
yeah.
And it's it's good seeing the effort when they make an offer and they got these visits scheduled right after and all that. But to me, you know, that's more that's more on the tail end. I mean, when they've
Right.
already been in these other schools 3 and 4 times, and they go 3 and 4 times every year since they've been a freshman. Now you just getting your cycle started. You should have been doing this in 2022,
Yeah.
2023.
Yeah.
So now they have these relationships. They talk to these guys every day. They
Yeah.
text and call these guys. They check on them every week. So like they really trust these guys. So you know it's just hard to come in at the tail end and think that you're going to wipe out 2-3 years in a couple months.
Right.
So that part with Mike Newville, that part of his job, I think you made a good point. The lazy recruiting part, it does start with him because you're the head guy. And you have to take it more seriously. You got to get guys in here that care about it. Because I think Patrick Surtain definitely cares about it.
Yeah.
Because
I mean,
he's probably he's
he's
one of your
everywhere.
best. He's not. Yeah, he's everywhere. I mean, every time I see these tweets, he's in a picture with somebody. I read an
Yeah.
article. They say he just was at the high school last week and all
Yeah.
this stuff. So he's like he's like rolling his shoulders up and he's hitting the pavement.
Yeah.
So you need to get that throughout the entire staff on all levels. Because once you get to that, then you can start establishing these recruitment classes like we're talking about that can set a foundation for 2-3 years. That guys can be
Right.
together from when they're freshmen all the way to their juniors. You know what I'm saying? That's how you do it. You gotta get guys to recruit like that. I mean, once you and you know, Florida State's Florida State, so yeah, they're gonna hit on some guys just because they're Florida State. Some
Right.
guys, they're born and raised in Florida. You know,
Yeah.
they've been around the program their whole life, and of course, you know, when you're in Florida, I mean, Florida State, Miami, and the Gators, that's heavily those are going to be heavily influences for you. So, but yeah, if they want to get back to the powerhouse level, you know, the recruiting aspect, it has to increase, and they have to get more Patrick Surtain type guys that are going to hit the pavement, you know, when it's the off
Yeah.
season. So,
And I'm gonna end with this last guy. We're gonna talk about Tony White real quick. The
mhm.
Tony White thing, that hire when they first hired him, uh, um, when I asked people about Tony White, I kind of got mixed reviews with him. Um, it was a rumor last year that they had took play calling duties from him like midway through the
Mm,
season last year. I don't
kind
know
of when
how
they had
true
some
that is.
struggles.
Yeah, I don't know how true that is. I did hear that. I know people keep referencing the fact they did a good job against Ohio State, which is true, but I think people need to remember that Ohio State had like a shit ton of injuries on the O line early in the season. So
Hmm.
that they O line didn't really form up together and become a good O line until like week 9, week 10, week 11. And even then, when they played against Michigan, Michigan pretty much dominated them.
Right.
Um, I mean, don't get me wrong. Ohio State won that championship. Very talented team. You know what I'm saying? Not taking nothing away from Ohio State. I'm just saying they had struggles on the offensive line because the guy that just got drafted, the top guy that was like the best guy in the draft, he didn't really play season. He was out
Hmm.
most of the season. So I forgot what his name is. But one thing I will say about Tony White though, that everybody said that pretty consistent was he's a really good communicator. So he does do a good job of getting his message across and bringing the whole defense together. I think a lot of times these defensive staffs, and I know this was a problem with Fuller last year. I know Fuller and Surtain didn't get along at all because Fuller
I heard that too.
Fuller vision of the defense. He has a one concept way of which and way he want to coach the defense, right? But sometimes you don't have the pieces for this stuff, and you have to be able to do what the players can do to make the defense better. And I know for a fact there was a big deal when they had Earl Little in the slot. They had him playing nickel
Hmm. Yeah.
because they saw him like Jamie Robinson. They kept kind of comparing to Jamie Robinson. And Sertain was like, we need to put him at safety. It's not a slot. He don't have the hips to move and do the
Yeah,
things you're trying to ask him to
he's not
do.
twitchy enough. Yeah.
He's not twitchy enough to do the stuff you're asking him to do, and he doesn't read plays fast enough, right? So that was a big deal. So when they did finally move Earl a little back, you saw he played better. You know, if you watched the Miami game, he was really good in the Miami game.
Yes.
So I do think that Tony White would be a better communicator, understanding what his staff is telling him, the players, the position coaches are telling him what can be done instead of what you want to do. Because this, you could always say, I want to do this, but if somebody's saying what the players, they can't do that, right?
Hmm.
We got to design something that they can do. And I do think Tony White will be a lot better at that. You know, so I'm actually a more bullish on him at Florida State.
Hmm.
I'm thinking with Matt Rule. Like I said, Matt Rule is a difficult coach to understand because he's a very demanding coach. But I like demanding coaches, but I do know that can
Me
wear on
too.
people. That can
Yeah.
wear on people. So you know, and Matt Rule ain't some God's gift to college football to football either. You know, he's had one good stop at Baylor and a good stop at Temple. I think that was it
Hmm.
though. So in Nebraska, I mean, they talk about him like he's doing so great in Nebraska. He hasn't won over 7 games, I don't think. No,
Hmm.
he hasn't won over 8 games. Sorry about that. But anyway, yeah. So I don't know, but that's my thoughts on Tony White.
Yeah. I mean, he definitely has a track record for, you know, uh, turning defenses around and having them very respectable. You know, Nebraska was a very respectable defense. When you look at, where they ranked last year, it's just, coming in here and doing something new. That's always going to take time. I think the good thing is that he does have talent on this defense, especially on the back end, and I think that's going to be key. Um, because I think for a while up front, you might have some struggles. So you're going to need your secondary not only to cover well, but they're probably going to have to be good against the run for a little bit. While you're trying to figure some things out.
Right.
Because while you're struggling up front, which I think is going to take some time. That's going to mean that your linebackers are not going to be clean.
Right.
So guys like Stephon Thompson came over from Nebraska. Him and Elijah Herring,
That's actually
the
why
transfer.
I actually expect to see them do a lot of blitzing early in the season. I really do. I
Okay.
think they're gonna blitz a lot because I think they're gonna have a hard time reading and reacting. So you have to just basically put guys in certain places. So I do expect them to do a
Mhm.
lot of blitzing. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Go ahead.
No, you good. No, it's just that Thompson and Herring have talent, but if they're not being kept clean, that's going to be tough. So um, yeah. Tony. I mean, he has some talent to work with. So I think it's just going to be about how long is it going to take this thing to gel. Which part of defense is going? Because you got three different levels. So you got the D line, the linebackers, and the secondary. So which group is going to catch on first? One group always seems to be ahead of the other. So I'm hoping that the defensive line gets at least decent before this Bama game because I want to see a lot of good effort and a lot of good play against Bama because that's a pro ready, pro style offensive line. Guys that go in the league every year. So let's say it's not going to be the end of the world if they get beat up a little bit because you're playing Bama. It's the first game and this is new. But if they come out with good effort against Bama, which I think they will, I mean, I think it's just because for one, you're playing at home, and two, I think there's a little sour taste in the mouth of Florida State with the fact that Bama got in that playoff a couple of years. So that's gonna be interesting, man. Just how they start out with the Bama game, I think is gonna say a lot about where the unit goes, and that's a perfect test with a school like Bama.
Yeah. 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 I think so too. I think so too. So we 37 minutes in. I want to make sure I remind y'all to like this pod if you're on YouTube. If you see us on YouTube, man, make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. Um, and also we're on audio too, so you can download us on Apple, iTunes, and Spotify. So make sure you get that done. Take us with you.
Yes, sir.
I see everybody's talking about this FSU getting back or whatever in the chat, but it's like, man, I'm optimistic. I think FSU will get back and can get back, but we need something dynamic to happen, like either a dynamic athletic director, a dynamic head coach. Bro, I was looking at some the other day because Florida had won they won a basketball championship, and I think it was the softball team or something was going on while Florida was winning the championship or something. Because my wife like watching all these like other sports, like she watched
Mhm.
track and field and all this other stuff. And I'm like, dang man, Florida really be winning a lot of championships and stuff. so,
Mhm. Right.
so I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, dang, is Florida like a better program, like sports program than Florida State? So I'm like, when you think about that, it's kind of crazy. Like, hey, you rivals with somebody, you be thinking like, oh, well, we're better than, but yeah, we kind of
Mhm.
Florida really be winning a lot in a lot of other sports. It's kind of
Mhm.
crazy. You think about it.
Yeah, it is. Remember for a minute they had they just got back on top of basketball, and then
Yeah, but
back
when they win in
15 years ago they won a couple
yeah, but
back to back. So when they were
in
winning in football
basketball
too.
though, I always kind of thought in basketball, I was like, well, Billy Donovan is just a dynamic head coach. They got lucky on a hire, like they hired. Because if you win a championship with one coach, you can always say, well, that coach is just a great coach. But when you
Yeah,
do it with another coach, then it's become about the program is a
yeah,
great program.
yeah.
You know what I'm
Probably
saying? Like
great program. Right.
it was important for Florida State to win a championship with Jimbo Fisher. You know what I'm saying? Because
Yes.
it proved that no, the program is a little bit bigger than just Bobby Bowden. Like
Probably about
you
yeah.
can win with different coaches here. You know what I'm saying? There's a
Hmm.
formula here to win. So I never really worry about what Florida State can do as far as in the future, especially with this. I think NIL, much as people hate it, I think is a good thing, uh, especially for a program like Florida State. I think expansion far as us going to either the Big Ten or the SEC would be a big thing for FSU in the future.
Mhm.
You know, coach wise, I've never been a real believer in Mike Norvell. So it's like me saying it is like not really saying it. That's like me walking out saying the sky blue. Like, that's like I
Right, right.
firmly believe that. You know what I'm saying? So I just don't
Yeah.
I don't see it. I don't see it. I do think he does. I think Mike Norvell does good things. Like I think the way he manages football games in game is pretty
Hmm.
good to me. I think he
Yeah.
manages football games pretty well. I think his
Yeah.
play calling is stale. I think his offense is very stale. I think it's a high floor offense. So I think it'll beat most if he has more talent, he'll beat a team that has less talent for the most part.
Mhm. Yeah.
Um, but I thought he firmly outcoached Brian Kelly every time he played Brian Kelly. Every
Yes.
game. I think
Yes.
he firmly outcoached Brian Kelly every single time. I really do believe that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I don't like this whole thing. Alabama's going to be a very interesting thing because he's coaching against somebody that is, in my opinion, a top 5 coach. I mean, I think DeBoer is like a
Oh yeah.
really
The
dynamic
boys
coach. I
up
really
there.
do.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how that matchup goes is going to be interesting to me. I think he's a better in-game coach than Mario and a better in-game coach than Billy Napier. I really do. But Billy
Hmm.
Napier and Mario are so much better off the field as far as getting
Off the
talent.
field. Yeah. Getting recruiting. Yeah.
You
They're
know,
they're like blowing them out the water when it comes to that. Yeah.
so those things just got to change, man. He just got to change that stuff, man. But if you got anything else you want to add?
Oh no, I mean, I think we pretty much covered everything we want to talk about. Getting to the staff. But yeah, man. Knighton for me, as far as the defense goes, he's definitely the top one. After that, I would say the secondary coaches, Sertan and Cooper, because while they're going to do growing pains up front, it's going to put a lot more pressure on the back end, to start off. So they're going to be in see. I think Sertan and Cooper are. I've seen some times when they've had some guys that they're recruiting where they both been involved, both
Mhm.
been in contact and taking trips and stuff like that. So that's really good. 'Cause if you can get to where you got multiple coaches in one area and they're both bringing in guys, like that's gonna help your roster overall. But yeah, I would say Knighton and the secondary coaches, those are the ones I'm really looking at as far as defense goes, especially when the season kicks off against
Yeah,
Bama.
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely, man. So that's enough of that. But make sure y'all subscribe, man. Make sure you hit the like button. For the people that's not in the live chat that's just popping by, man, just make sure you put a go nose in the chat, you know, and we'll keep rocking. I think enjoy your Memorial Day.
Yes, sir.
We'll
Be
probably be back.
safe if you're going out,
Yep, be safe. Stay away from firecrackers.
please.
All
No
right, man.
JPP situations.
Yeah, that thing look rough, man. They showed that junk on
Yeah,
TV the other day. I was like, ugh.
yeah, it's great.
I was like, ugh, that's bad.
Yeah.
But all right, man. I appreciate
All
it.
right. We will see y'all next time.
All
Salute.
right, go Noles.
Go Nose.